Here are the three objections I hear most often when I talk about free market capitalism. 1. Capitalism is for the rich.
Okay, but it is, though. The people who benefit the most from capitalism are the ultra-wealthy, while the workers get exploited.
The rich and powerful are perfectly happy with monopolies, regulations, and command economies when they and not markets are in control.
Who does this guy think capitalists are? They are the rich and powerful. Fucking Elon Musk is a capitalist. Jeff Bezos, fucking Mark Zuckerberg, they're all capitalists. They are the people in control of the markets and the economy. They control so much wealth that they are the market. There's like 10 companies around the world that own and control literally fucking everything. The rich and powerful are in complete control over capitalism. So I don't know why he's making a distinction between the rich and powerful and markets, as if there's a difference.
In fact, according to a recent study, the world's most unequal country is socialist Venezuela.
No, it's not. The current most unequal country in the world is capitalist exploited South Africa.
What's unique about free markets is that you can only stay rich if you enrich others.
Africa, like as a continent, is extremely rich in precious resources. But the only reason that we see those countries as poor is because they're overexploited. They're not poor at all. The only reason that the people there are so poor is because of capitalist exploitation. We take all of their resources and say that we own it when it was found in their fucking country. The people who do the most valuable work for capitalist nations aren't seen by the capitalist nations. We don't have a whole lot of people working in lithium mines here in the US. But oh boy, there's a bunch of them in undeveloped countries. Poor countries that are rich in resources. So clearly under capitalism, you can get rich without enriching others. How does capitalism enrich the people who are getting paid so little at their jobs that they can't afford to feed their children and keep a roof over their heads? All for the sake of enriching the already wealthy.
With higher productivity and cheaper goods and services. That's why the income of the poorest tenth of the population is more than 8 times greater in economically free countries than in the least free.
No. 'Cause, like, 10 people own as much wealth as the bottom 50% of humanity? And the only reason that people are allowed to hoard that much money and able to hoard that much money is because of capitalism. It should never be the case that 10 people have as much wealth as half of humanity. It should never be the case that 10 people own half of all wealth in existence. Nobody can possibly earn that much money without exploitation. Nobody's labor is worth that much fucking money.
Globally, since 1990, the share of people in extreme poverty has declined from close to 40% to less than 10%.
So this isn't entirely wrong, but it is incredibly misleading. Do you know what we set the global, like, standard for extreme poverty at? $2.15 a day. So if you make an average of $2.16 a day, you don't count as being in extreme poverty. But don't try and tell me that anybody's living the good life on $2.16 a day. Just because extreme poverty has gone down doesn't mean that poverty has gone down at all. We just don't adjust these standards as the world develops, so we get these good-looking numbers that don't actually represent reality. Not to mention that poverty, and by extension extreme poverty, are going to be different from region to region. There are people living in extreme poverty by local standards in the United States, but they don't count. They're considered wealthy by the global standard. So even though people in extreme poverty in the US are usually starving and homeless, we have people justify poverty within the United States just because those people would be considered wealthy in a different country, not the one that they're in.
More than 100,000 people rose out of poverty every day.
Again, the extreme poverty level is $2.15 a day. People making a couple cents more than that are completely cut off from this data. It does not mean that they are not still in extreme poverty. And this data is also skewed because it doesn't really count people living in extreme poverty in richer nations to be in extreme poverty.
That's the greatest thing that has happened to the world, and it happened fastest in the countries that began to liberalize their markets. 2. Corporations make obscene profits at the expense of us. Nope.
They literally fucking do, though. Like, they profit by exploiting us and their workers, raising prices and paying their workers less.
In a free market, no deal is ever made unless both parties think that they benefit from it.
Fucking slavery happened and is currently happening under capitalism, so no. Not to mention, if I need money to stay alive, I am not really at a place where I have a lot of bargaining power with my employer over how much I can be exploited. Because they have more power over me as a worker than I will ever have over them as an individual worker. Because under capitalism, in wealthy nations, you need to have stable income in order to stay alive. Because everything is privatized. Everything is run for profit. If you can never truly stop working, then you will eventually have to give in to capitalist demands to exploit your labor in order to keep yourself alive. There is no consent under duress.
And you can only get rich by enriching others. Before a business can make a profit, it first has to produce something customers value. Then pay its suppliers. Then pay the bank for loans, and of course pay salaries to its employees, even if it doesn't sell a single product.
Yeah, but the people actually profiting from all of that are the wealthy capitalists. The workers get fucked over. Because the workers, the employees, are paid a fucking pittance compared to what the profit of their labor produces. When corporations make record-breaking profits, workers don't get paid more for their labor causing that. Without labor, capitalists don't make any profit at all, and yet labor is not properly compensated whenever it produces more profit. And too many people are paid so fucking little at their jobs that they can't even take care of themselves or a family.
If a business managed to make all these groups happy and still has anything left, that's the profit, which will of course be heavily taxed. So the capitalist is last in line. Profits.
Then why do all the workers get paid so fucking little while the capitalist gets so much? Why would there ever be workers living in poverty while working full time if the capitalist was the last in line for the paycheck?
Are not something they take from others. It's the small share they get to keep of the value they create for others.
They don't create that value, though. Labor does. At absolute best, you could say that capitalists manage the labor done by others, but there is absolutely no fucking reason that they should be able to profit off of the work done by hundreds or thousands or even millions of other people. Without labor, capital has no power. But without capital, labor is still extremely useful and necessary.
3. Free trade results in exploitation and a race to the bottom. On the contrary, when countries open up to the world, they get access to technology, know-how, and economies of scale that raise their productivity, and so.
Okay, then explain why capitalist exploited countries are typically some of the most fucked over. Why are the people in countries that are rich with resources typically poor? It's because capitalist companies come in and take over their natural resources and exploit it. They exploit the labor of the native people, and they export their resources to sell it within wealthier nations, or even sell it back to these developing nations. Capitalism does nothing but exploit poorer countries and all of its business partners. Capitalism, in general, but especially in the developing world, is anything but a democratic agreement. Capitalism for the poor and the working class is just indentured servitude. And also, capitalists are really into, like, not paying or underpaying their workers. Look at all of capitalist history for the last, 500 years. The profit motive literally runs against what he's saying right here. Because of the profit motive, you are motivated to pay your workers less and treat them worse because it's better for your profit. In a lot of cases, it's cheaper to just replace a worker that drops dead than it is to keep them alive and healthy.
They also improve wages and working conditions. On average, foreign-owned companies pay 16 to 40% more than comparable local companies. Since 2000, the global rate of workplace deaths declined by 14% and child labor declined by 40%. Neither is there an environmental race to the bottom. The richer countries get, the more they protect their environment.
That's because richer countries have the luxury of not worrying so much about developing their country. You're not going to be as worried about what your survival is doing to the planet when literally it's do that or die. In richer countries, we have the luxury of not having to worry day to day about just staying alive. Most of the time.
And free trade speeds up the transition to new and greener technologies around the world. If this is exploitation, then the only thing that's worse than being exploited is not being exploited.
The fuck did you just say? He literally doesn't even mention any of the actual drawbacks to capitalism. He's just fucking repeating basic ass propaganda. This is the same milquetoast shit that you hear on fucking PragerU about why capitalism is so great. But they don't mention the fucking slavery that happens or the history of labor, particularly in the US. Like, supporters of capitalism flat out fucking deny the effect that capitalism has on the undeveloped world. The fucking slavery, the forced labor, the exploitation of undeveloped countries. They just want to paint it as if it's a good thing because on paper, hey, they're getting a little bit wealthier. Except the people aren't. Shit's completely ridiculous. This guy's trash. This is bad video.